Brilliance Audio presents the unabridged recording of A Perfect Obsession by Heather Graham, performed by Saskia Maarleveld. Chapter 1.
Horrible. Oh God, horrible. Tragic,
John Shaw said, shaking his head with a dazed look as he sat on his bar stool at Finnegan's pub. Kieran nodded sympathetically. Construction crews had found the old graves when they were working on the foundations at the hot new downtown venue, Le Club Vampire. Anthropologists found the new body among the old graves the next day. It wasn't just any body. It was the body of supermodel Jeanette Gilbert. Finding the old graves wasn't much of a shock, not in New York City, and not in a building that was close to 2 centuries old. The structure that housed Le Club Vampire was a deconsecrated Episcopal church. The church's congregation had moved to a facility it had purchased from the Catholic Church, whose congregation was now in a sparkling new basilica over on Park Avenue. While many had bemoaned the fact that such a venerable old building had been turned into an establishment for those into sex, drugs, and rock and roll, life, and business, went on. They were expanding the wine cellar, and so work on the foundations went on too. It was while investigators were still being called in following the discovery of the newly deceased body, moments before it hit the news, that Kieran Finnegan learned about it. And that was because she was helping out at their family pub, Finnegan's on Broadway. Like the old church nightclub behind it, Finnegan's dated back to just before the Civil War, and had been a pub for most of those years. Since it was geographically the closest establishment to the church with liquor, it had apparently seemed the right place at that moment for Professor John Shaw. They'd barely opened. It was still morning, and it was a Friday. And Kieran was only there at that time because her bosses had decided on a day off following their participation in a lengthy trial. She'd just been down in the basement, fetching a few bottles of vintage Chardonnay for her brother, ordered specifically for a lunch that day, when John Shaw had caught her attention, desperate to talk.
I can't tell you how excited I was, being called in as an expert on a find like that, the professor told Kieran. They both wanted me. By they, I mean Henry Willoughby, president of Preserve Our Past, and Roger Gleason, owner and manager of the club. I was so honored. It was exciting to think of finding the old bodies, but then...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?